So basically we're measuring, for the most part, we're measuring this angle and we're giving it a degree angle to say, okay, I want it this big, or I want it, you know, a little bigger, like I want a 19 degree, or I want a 26 degree, or do I want a 36 degree, or do I want a 50 degree? How much stage do I want to cover that? What do you guys think might be one of the minuses of putting, say, 50 degree versus a 19 degree in one of those spots? What's that? You can get lights in places that you didn't want it to be. You could blind the people over there. Correct. What might be another difference between the two units? What's one of our tools we talked about? Intensity? Do you think there's any effect on intensity if you put a 19 versus a 50 degree in? Yeah, so usually if it's the same type of lighting instrument with the same lamp in it, it's usually going to be brighter with the smaller beam angle. It's going to be dimmer if you have a wider beam angle, because you're taking all that same light and you're spreading it out with a wider beam, right? So that it diffuses the light and kind of spreads it out and makes it a little bit dimmer. Whereas if you focus it, you're concentrating and you're making that beam a little brighter. So that's another thing that you're considering when you're sectioning these things as a lighting designer. Okay? So usually the section is sort of first. Some designers don't necessarily do that. They might have certain things in mind and they just kind of know where they want to put certain lights. But usually this is very informative of what size light you want to put in different places. And then the light plot is basically, once you know what size lights you want, you kind of evenly spread them out where you want them on the light plot. And then again, the light plot is kind of like, this is a very simple version of it that I gave you guys. But it shows the pipe and it shows the lights and where they hang. Let's see what other examples I have. Mostly I brought theater drawings just so you guys can see it. Here, this is a hand-drawn grid drawing of the studio theater. So this shows all the pipes. You can see it gets a little overwhelming. It's got all those pipes in there. You almost want to go to a larger scale. Do you guys know what I mean when I say scale? Mm-hmm. Basically, you're doing a direct representation of a bigger size with a smaller size. So this is drawn probably, this is 1/8 inch equals 1 foot. So every 1/8 inch of mark equals a foot drawn on here, a foot in real life. So probably a little too small to put lights on. You would probably go a little larger. This is a section. Like it's a little confusing because they've drawn it on grid paper, but you can see that they've drawn kind of a representation of the catwalks and the stage floor, so that you can easily draw your beams and lights in there and kind of get a representation of the size. But that would be a section of the theater. And these will be up in the front if you guys want to look at them towards the end of class. Now, those were all hand drafted. Here, just so you can see, I usually work in computers. I do AutoCAD and I'm just starting to get back into Vectorworks because they did it so long ago when I was in school. This is a Vectorworks drafting of the space. It's got the pipes and the seats so you can see it. So obviously much neater and cleaner, right, on computer for the most part. Now some people can hand draft super neat and clean. I'm not one of those people. So I tend to do computer drafting. And usually what I do is, before I sit down to the computer, I'll print out a grid like this without lights on it. And I'll just sit there and I'll draw little arrows where I want my lights, or little boxes. Like if I want a Fresnel, I'll make a little square. If I want an ellipsoidal, we'll talk about units on Thursday this week. We'll talk about what instrument types we have. But for the different instrument types, I'll just make a real simple representation, and then I'll go to the computer and I'll draft it. So that I have a real quick, easy way to kind of reorganize things as I go. But that's the idea there. Okay, so that's a lot of the paperwork that we talked about. We talked a little bit about cue sheets last time and generating that in the final ones. And I think that's it. Oh, the equipment list, I don't know if we revisited. The final equipment list, we talked about...
We had to have work clothes.
This is something different. Okay, so just to kind of clarify, we had talked about the initial stages of lighting design and getting what we called an inventory, right? Does anybody remember what the inventory was? Yeah.
To see the type of, the stuff that you're working with.
The stuff that you're working with, the number and types of lights that you have at a space available to you. So that was part of your initial reconnaissance, right? You would go in, you'd find out what your space was like, you'd get the inventory. But the equipment list is specialty stuff that you need above and beyond that inventory. Stuff that the theater doesn't necessarily have at its disposal. Like in this space, let's say I needed, obviously you look around, all of these are what we call conventional lights. Let's say I wanted to do a little rock and roll show in here. I might need like something like moving lights. These are just examples, this is not. And then I might need something like a hazer. We talked a little bit about atmosphere and effects. One of the things you guys always see when you're at rock and roll shows is the beams of the lights, right? And that needs atmosphere or haze. So I'm going to get a haze machine or a hazer, that kind of stuff. And those might not necessarily be part of what they provide here at the space. So the idea is that these are specialty items that need renting or buying. So that's what I want you to know about that. Rental or purchase items. So they would be stuff the space does not have. Okay. All right. One of the tools you guys can use if you're hand drafting, and I just kind of want you to be aware of this, is they have what are called templates. So that when you go to draft your little light plot, if you're doing it by hand, they have in different scales, depending on what scale you're drafting in. Like again, that 1/8 inch light drawing or lighting grid would not be a good size. This is 1/4 inch equals 1 foot. So they have little lighting units on this that are representative of a quarter scale kind of outline of the lights. So if you guys want to hand that around so you can kind of see it. But that would be the idea. If you were hand drafting, you would probably use this, and I have some more of this eventually. That would be what you could use to help hand draft. Okay. Now, I want to make sure you guys know that on Thursday, we're going to be starting to talk about lighting equipment. But we're actually probably, I'm hoping, if we have time, we're going to be working with it a little bit too. So one of the things that is going to be due on Thursday is we talked about procuring a wrench. And I'm going to check it off like a homework assignment.
That one on the table?
Yep, just like that one on the table. So some of you were not sure what a 6-inch adjustable crescent wrench looks like.
Where do I get that from?
You can get it from any hardware store. Any hardware store. Or your parents might have it in a toolbox sitting at home. Now it can be larger. If you guys have like an 8-inch or a 10-inch crescent wrench, that's fine. The only thing to be aware of is that the larger the handle, the more likely it is that you might over-tighten things. The thing that's nice about the 6-inch crescent wrench is it tends to make things tight but not snap off. So if you have a bigger wrench, I just ask that you use care using it and don't break any bolts. Yeah, this is the 6-inch. And again, it has the little screw adjustment here that allows you to open and close the jaws. So I will check those off Thursday as if they're a homework assignment. The idea is we're going to do a little bit of a lecture about lighting equipment. I'm going to have a couple things set up. You guys will be working, we're going to kind of break up into groups, and I want each of you to hang a light, focus a light, kind of play with it, put a gel in it, and kind of know how they all work. So we'll be breaking up into groups on that. All right. I want to kind of show you guys a few pictures before we go on. Can I get somebody to try to turn on the projector? Usually you have to aim it right at it. If you just aim it right at it, it might take a couple pushes before you see the light come on. You just hit the power button and aim it at the projector. It might take a few tries.
glad I'm not here.
And it might take a few seconds for it to actually power on.
Do you have any more magic sheets, or can you put it on?
Did we run out of magic sheets? The magic sheets have actually, if you guys could hand the magic sheets back, I'm gonna update them again. That was to give you guys an idea.